All right, let's just jump right in. Welcome to today's Explainer. I am literally so excited you're joining us today because we're going to explore a massive, super important question. What happens when a country just absolutely refuses to share power? Now, we usually think about power as this thing people fight over and hoard. But today, we're going to learn why giving power away might actually be the smartest possible way to keep a country together.
So here is our game plan for today. First, a tale of two countries. Second, two paths, conflict and peace. Third, why share power. Fourth, forms of power sharing. Fifth, our chapter summary and recap. And finally, number 6, a quick quiz and some exercises to lock it all in.
Starting with Section 1, a tale of two countries.
To really wrap our heads around power sharing, we're going to look at two real-world examples, Belgium over in Europe and Sri Lanka in South Asia. But before we meet these countries, we've got to unlock a really crucial vocabulary word, and that word is ethnic. What does that actually mean? Well, an ethnic group is basically a social division based on shared culture. People in the same ethnic group believe they come from a common descent. They share similarities, maybe in how they look, the traditions they celebrate, or the language they speak. And the fascinating part is, people in the same ethnic group don't even necessarily have to share the same religion or nationality. Grasping a country's ethnic makeup is literally the secret key to understanding its politics.
So, let's look at our first country, Belgium. It's a pretty small country in Europe, honestly, about the size of the state of Haryana in India, with a population of roughly 1 crore, or 10 million people. But look at how complex its ethnic makeup is. 59% of the country lives in the Flemish region and speaks Dutch. 40% live in the Wallonia region and speak French, and there's a tiny 1% that speaks German. But wait, here is the huge twist. In the capital city of Brussels, the French-speaking minority is actually the majority. They make up 80% of the city. As you can imagine, this created a ton of tension, especially because the minority French speakers were relatively rich and powerful compared to the rest of the country.
Now let's hop over to our second country, Sri Lanka. It's an island nation just south of India with about 2 crore or 20 million people. And the demographics here are super striking. 74% of the population are Sinhala speakers. 18% are Tamil speakers. And just to break that down a bit more, among the Tamils there are 2 subgroups. Sri Lankan Tamils make up 13% and Indian Tamils make up 5%. Plus, there are about 7% Christians. So looking at this, you can see this massive, overwhelming majority held by the Sinhala speakers. And that sets the stage for a major imbalance of power. I mean, think about it. What would you do if you were in the majority?
Which brings us to Section 2, two paths, conflict and peace.
So how did these two incredibly diverse countries actually choose to handle their populations? Well, Sri Lanka became an independent country in 1948, and they decided to go down a path called majoritarianism. Let's define that real quick. It's basically a belief that the majority community should be able to rule a country in whichever way it wants, completely disregarding the wishes and needs of the minority. In 1956, Sri Lanka passed a law making Sinhala the one and only official language. They started giving preference to Sinhala applicants for government jobs and university spots, and they actively protected Buddhism over other religions. They completely and totally ignored the Tamils.
This right here brilliantly illustrates the difference between our two case studies. While Sri Lanka used majoritarianism to shut out the Tamils, Belgium chose a path of accommodation. The leaders in Belgium realized, hey, if we want to keep this country together, we have to respect everybody. So, between 1970 and 1993, they actually changed their constitution 4 separate times. They made a strict rule that there must be an equal number of Dutch and French-speaking ministers in the central government. They handed over a lot of power to state governments. They even created a totally separate government for Brussels where both communities have equal representation. Basically, everyone got a seat at the table.
But we have to look at the consequences of Sri Lanka's path. Because the Sri Lankan Tamils felt so alienated and ignored, they started demanding their basic rights, and eventually they demanded their own independent state. This deep distrust turned into widespread violence, and tragically, a full-blown civil war. Now, a civil war is a violent conflict between opposing groups within the same exact country that gets so intense it just looks like a full-scale war. Thousands and thousands of people from both sides were killed, and the war didn't even end until 2009. It just caused absolutely terrible suffering.
Let's move to Section 3, why share power?
We've seen the stories now, but we need to ask why. Why did Belgium succeed while Sri Lanka struggled so much? Why is sharing power actually a good thing? Well, there are 2 main reasons, and the first one requires us to learn a fantastic new word, prudential. Prudential means it's based on prudence, or a really careful calculation of gains and losses. It means making a decision based on practical, real-world outcomes. Think of it like this. Why do you do your homework? I mean, sure, you could say it's to become a better, more educated person, but prudentially, you do it so you don't fail the class. It's a highly practical, calculated choice.
So, we can essentially divide the reasons for power sharing into prudential reasons and moral reasons. The prudential, highly practical reason is that power sharing simply reduces conflict between social groups. It stops violence and ensures long-term political stability. Forcing the will of the majority onto everyone else might look like a quick fix today, but it completely destroys the nation's unity tomorrow. On the flip side, the moral reason is that power sharing is literally the very spirit of democracy. People have a fundamental right to be consulted on how they are governed. It is simply the right and ethical thing to do. So honestly, it's not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do.
All right, Section 4, Forms of Power Sharing.
Okay, let's open up our civic toolbox for a second. We know power sharing is good, right? But how do countries actually pull it off? Well, in modern democracies, there are 4 main forms of power sharing. Number 1, horizontal distribution. Number 2, vertical division. Number 3, power sharing among social groups. And number 4, power sharing among political parties and movements. We're going to walk through this list nice and slow because we're about to look at an example of each one. And trust me, this is super important for your exams.
Let's break down this table. First up, horizontal power sharing. This is when power is shared side by side among different organs of government. So the legislature makes the laws, the executive enforces them, and the judiciary interprets them. They're all on the same level, checking each other so no one gets too powerful. That's your system of checks and balances. Second, vertical. This is top to bottom sharing. Think of a central or union government sharing power down to state governments and then even further down to local municipalities. Third, social groups. A fantastic example of this is Belgium's community government, which handles language and culture for specific ethnic groups. Or, reserves seats for weaker sections in India. Finally, political parties. Sometimes no single party wins an election, right? So they form alliances and share power in what's called a coalition government.
Moving into Section 5, Chapter Summary and Recap.
Honestly, give yourselves a massive pat on the back right now. We have made it through some genuinely tough concepts today. Now let's hit our key takeaways to lock these ideas in your brain for good. Remember, ethnic diversity exists absolutely everywhere. It is completely normal. But how a government handles that diversity is everything. If a country chooses majoritarianism, where the majority bullies the minority, just like we saw in Sri Lanka, it leads to terrible conflict, civil war, and deep instability. But if a country chooses accommodation, like Belgium did, by proactively changing their constitution, it leads to peace and unity. And finally, always remember that power sharing has 2 huge benefits. It's prudential, meaning it's practically smart and prevents violence, and it's moral, meaning it embodies the true ethical spirit of democracy.
And now, Section 6, Final Quiz and Exercises.
Seriously, this is the best part. It is time to practice exactly what we've learned by solving the actual textbook exercises together. Okay, here is Exercise 6. Which of these arguments are in favor of power sharing? A. Reduces conflict. B. Decreases arbitrariness, which, by the way, just means people making random unfair rules. C. Delays decisions. D. Accommodates diversities. E. Increases instability. F. Promotes participation. Take a quick second. Think about it. Which of those letters represent the actual good things about power sharing?
Did you get it? The correct arguments are A, B, D, and F. Let's break it down. Power sharing definitely reduces conflict and accommodates diversity. That is exactly the prudential reason we just talked about. It also decreases arbitrariness and promotes participation, which hits right on the moral reason. So, why are C and E wrong? Well, because power sharing prevents instability. It absolutely doesn't increase it. And sure, while having more voices in the room might take a little longer sometimes, delaying decisions certainly isn't the primary argument in favor of doing it.
Awesome! Next up, Exercise 8. Let's play a little matching game. On one side, we have our 4 forms of power sharing right out of our civic toolbox. 1, organs of government. 2, levels of government. 3, social groups. 4, political parties. Can you remember which real-world examples match up with these? Think back to horizontal and vertical power for a second.
Let's connect the dots here. Number 1, organs of government matches right up with B, separation of powers. That's your horizontal sharing between the legislature, executive, and judiciary. Number 2, levels of government goes perfectly with D, federal government. That's your top to bottom vertical sharing. Number 3, social groups matches with A, community government, exactly like we saw in Belgium. And number 4, political parties matches with C, coalition government, where different parties team up. Do you see how easy these concepts are to grasp when you just organize them logically?
All right, here is the final, ultimate test of today's explainer to see if you've really grasped the core message of this whole chapter. Exercise 9. True or false? Statement A. Power sharing is good for democracy. Statement B. It helps to reduce the possibility of conflict between social groups. So, what do you think?
If you said both are true, you are absolutely 100% correct. Statement A is our moral reason, and Statement B is our prudential reason. Huge congratulations on mastering this chapter. You now deeply understand why giving power away actually makes a country stronger. So I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought. If you were building a brand new democracy today, looking around at your own community right now, who would you make sure to share power with first? Really think about it. Keep learning, keep questioning everything, and I will see you in the next explainer.